I'm here with my colleague, Sean Reynolds. Let's talk a little bit about this. Just set the atmosphere for me a little bit about how it was today.
Well, we're talking about how much fun this is. I mean, you come out of COVID in which everything is done, remotely, and you get into this situation where you kind of come to the heart of hockey here in Montreal, where fans are absolutely passionate and nuts about it as it is. Never mind the fact that your team has the first overall pick. So, I mean, I spoke with Juraj Slafkovsky earlier on. They got the red carpet going on. The fans, big pop when he came out. That said, when the Montreal Canadiens management, when walking through on the red carpet, there was a lot of calls for Shane Wright. I mean, I don't think they're taking advice from fans yelling things out in the crowd last minute, but it didn't stop them from trying. I love the engagement. And listen, I covered the Montreal Canadiens runs of the Stanley Cup final last year. No one does hockey, no one does pomp and circumstance like the Montreal Canadiens. So it is just, feels like such a good welcome back moment. And I know a lot of the journalists who are in town, there's a lot of them, and just people who work for the NHL, they're so happy to kind of be back to this little bit of normalcy, but this isn't normal. This is a step up. Montreal does these things right, and that's what we're seeing right now.
Of course, and speaking of Wright, it's Shane Wright, not Sean. You're Sean Reynolds.
Yeah.
I'm getting everything mixed up, Slafkovsky. So between Shane and Slafkovsky, who do we think is actually going to be the first one? Of course, we have the big guy, which is the Slovak, and then we have our Canadian. Who do we think Kent Hughes is actually going to pick?
Well, this is an interesting one because this has been a one-horse race for so long. Like, Shane Wright was the anointed first overall pick years ago, and it's like one of these races where the horse comes around the turn and is heading away to an easy victory, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the other horse comes just flying down the rail, and it's going to be a photo finish. I mean, the Montreal Canadiens say, and we can take it for what that's worth, but they say that they have not yet made up their mind on who they're going to pick, to the degree that Juraj Slafkovsky met with the Canadiens today, with their owner, with their general manager, with the coach. I mean, that doesn't usually happen on draft day. Now, it was supposed to happen 2 days ago. It got pushed back, but it seems interesting. I mean, I asked him, how did that meeting go? He said he thought it went really well. He's a confident guy. You and I were talking about this before. He's a really confident guy. And like I said, it's almost like, I felt that the crowd was very pro Shane Wright. And then Slafkovsky stepped off the bus, and he's, I think, like 6'4". This guy looks like he was born to play hockey. And it's almost like just the sight of him, the crowd was like, whoa, I think this is going to be one of those things where I don't necessarily think that the crowd is going to be upset if either guy is picked, because there's so much talk about Slafkovsky coming on late that it seems like he's trending in the right direction. But I mean, Shane Wright, such a tough situation for him. We were talking about COVID earlier. So much of his development was shut down by that I don't know that we've gotten a very good or proper look at what he could potentially be. So I'll tell you this, the scouts are going to be making their money this year because it's been very trying circumstances. I don't know if it's the best scenario for the Canadiens to be put in. You think of the last couple times that they had high picks, it didn't go too well. Recent third overall picks, they didn't really turn out the way we thought third overall picks would go. So it would have been really nice, I think, for Canadiens fans if this was a year that you had a clear-cut number one guy. That's not what's happening. The scouts are going to have to earn their money, but it adds to the intrigue, it adds to the story here today.
For sure. And you have, of course, Slafkovsky, who is much bigger. As you said, it's obvious. He looks like he's born to be a hockey player. Do you think they might, really change their mind and be like, listen, we do need bigger guys. Do we need bigger guys, or are we good with what we got and kind of following through with that talent and what we saw with Wright?
I mean, I'll tell you this. I just finished up with the Stanley Cup final, and Cale Makar is not a big guy, but he's your Conn Smythe Trophy winner. He's a young man. He looks like a young man. He's not a guy who walks into a room and you're like, that guy's an athlete and he's going to overpower everyone in this room. We're going to a place where hockey sense matters more and more. So, I mean, the one thing I think scouts always do believe is speed and skill is what you're looking for, but speed, skill, and added with size seems to trump everything. But that said, it is a thinking man's game now. It always has been. So I don't think that it's the best to get tied up in that, but sometimes it's hard not to. Like I said, if you're sitting here at the very last minute and you're the Canadiens and you just do the eyeball test between Slafkovsky and Shane Wright, To your point, like one looks like he was born to play that game. But if you see Connor McDavid doesn't look like he's, the most obvious hockey player, and Connor McDavid is most obviously the best hockey player in the world. So again, the scouts got to rely on more than just their eyes in this situation. But if it's a tie going down the stretch, sometimes you take what's more physically appealing. I'm not saying that's going to happen here. I will say this. I thought that it was going to be a clear-cut Shane Wright gets picked first overall. The more I talk around here, the more I'm wondering if it's going to go in a different direction.
Because you told me earlier that it was very clear that when he got off the bus, Kent Hughes, that there was something that was being said in his ear. What were you hearing from the fans?
Well, it was interesting. When Kent Hughes comes out and he's talking with the fans are chanting like, take Shane Wright, take Shane Wright. He's clearly the fan favorite. But like I'd said, then Slafkovsky gets off the bus and his presence is just, the confidence we were talking about, the way he looks, the way he talks. We stopped and did a one-on-one with him and had a conversation with him. Like, this is a guy who believes strongly in himself. Confidence is, can be very easy to see. And I mean, he pops off that bus and the crowd popped. Like, they were really excited. I was wondering for a second. Now, he did say, he told me he heard some boos when he got off the bus. So I don't know, maybe that'll just add to the chip on the shoulder. You use whatever motivation you can. But like we were saying, I think there are some fans there trying to get into the ear of Kent Hughes to try and sway him in a specific direction. I think Kent Hughes is going to lean on his own devices to make this decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll be able to watch the draft at 7 p.m. Sportsnet will be covering that. We'll also have more coverage for you throughout the show. In Montreal, Brittany Henriques, City News.
Not enough French. First pick is Shane Wright. He's a good second center. He's a great player.
Center. We don't have no center. We only have Suzuki. Shane Wright. Yeah, we have to give him time. We don't have to rush him. Otherwise, we'll end up with another Kotkaniemi. So just take the time with Shane Wright and he'll be good.
Actually, you should go for the best one available.
Not Shane Wright?
Not Shane Wright. By having somebody big in the front would help. It's like if you add somebody some weight, some height, and somebody that's hard to move in front of the net. And I don't think Montreal's going to stand like in the basement like they did this year. But then again, you never know. But it's like the Avalanche that went from last place to win the Stanley Cup in a couple of years. Well, why not Montreal?